This is Avowed. It's easiest to describe as the Outer Worlds, but in a fantasy setting within the Pillars of Eternity universe. That puts me in a tough spot because I wasn't a fan of the Outer Worlds. Not because it was bad, just not my thing. But let's not get into that. Instead, let's break down Avowed, especially since I tend to prefer fantasy over sci-fi. In Avowed, you play as an envoy from the Aether Empire, sent to the Living Lands to investigate a mysterious plague known as the Dream Scourge. You can play in both first-person and third-person, but the game is clearly designed for first-person, so I'd recommend starting with that. You'll be exploring large, interconnected zones, not a fully open world, but each area is dense with vertical exploration and plenty to uncover. Your journey takes you through hubs, where you meet quest givers who usually send you off to fight enemies, gather loot, and return. But quests rarely go as expected. Dialogue choices shape the outcome, letting you influence the world, its characters, and even the direction of the story while leveling up and upgrading your gear. Since this is an Obsidian RPG, the game is heavily story-driven. Your enjoyment will depend a lot on whether you like that. The focus is on political intrigue and personal discovery, and even your starting background affects dialogue choices. Another big part of the game is obviously combat. It's a mix of melee attacks, archery, and spellcasting, with ability points and attribute points gained through leveling up. You can invest in the fighter, ranger, or wizard skill trees, and while you can mix and match, specializing early seems to be the most effective approach. The way combat feels has been a big discussion point. It really depends on what you compare it to. Compared to Skyrim, combat has more weight. But if you're expecting something like Dragon's Dogma or The Witcher, in terms of weight and impact, you might be a bit disappointed. Outside of combat, you'll have companions, 4 in total, but you can only bring 2 with you at a time. Each has their own skills and personality, and while I usually leave opinions out of these first videos, I have to mention this. Kai is voiced by Brandon Keener, the same actor behind Garrus in Mass Effect, so that's already a win in my book. Between missions, you can return to your camp, which acts as a hub for progression. Here, you can talk to your party members, upgrade and enchant gear, and craft new items. Gear upgrades help keep your weapons and armor relevant longer, reducing the constant loot swapping found in some RPGs. Crafting also lets you combine lower-tier materials, so even basic resources stay useful later on, though some materials are pretty rare. Another system tied to camp is totem shrines. While exploring, you'll find pieces of God Shrine totems, which can be assembled to grant passive buffs. It's a small but meaningful progression system that gives an extra incentive to explore. To summarize, Avowed is a fantasy Outer Worlds set in the Pillars of Eternity universe. It has everything you'd expect from an RPG, dialogue choices with different outcomes, a crafting system, exploration, character building, and a heavy emphasis on story. In later videos, I'll share my own experience, but this one was purely a short, no-nonsense explanation of what you can expect of Avowed. If you like videos that don't waste your time, please consider liking and subscribing. Regardless, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.